Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Molly Hudson. Thank you for joining us. Arizona is currently seeing a surge in COVID cases. In fact, it is the fastest rate of rise Arizona has experienced, according to Dr. Joshua LeBaire, the executive director of ASU's Biodesign Institute. He held a COVID briefing this morning. According to the Biodesign Institute, Arizona has seen over 7,700 new cases today alone. Dr. LeBaire says the majority of cases that are circulating in Arizona now are overwhelmingly the Omicron variant. He says the Omicron variant makes up more than 90% of cases in Arizona, according to ASU data. However, he noted that the number of cases we are seeing is likely an underestimate because at-home test results are not being reported to health officials. Dr. LeBaire also emphasized the importance of being vaccinated and getting tested now with the Omicron variant present in Arizona.
But in terms of protecting against an infection, the primary vaccine series is not particularly protective against an infection. Lots of breakthrough cases for Omicron if all you've had is the first 2 doses. If you get a third dose, if you get a booster dose, then the protection goes from roughly 25% to over 75%. So a huge bump in protection from a booster vaccine. And this is just a plea for.
The CDC says it has no plans to change its definition of fully vaccinated to include boosters. It will continue to consider those who have received the primary series of vaccines fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Governor Doug Ducey today announced preemptive action to ensure in-person learning remains an option for all Arizona families and students, consistent with guidance from public health experts. The governor is creating the Open for Learning Recovery Benefit Program. It will provide relief for parents who may face financial and educational barriers due to unexpected school closures. The program funds up to $7,000 for needs related to Arizona Department of Economic Security, approved childcare, school coordinated transportation, online tutoring, and school tuition. If a school closes for even one day, students and families who meet the income requirements can utilize funds. There will be some prescribed burns in the Kaibab National Forest this week. Rangers say winter weather is a good time for fire crews to burn debris left over from previous forest restoration projects. The prescribed burns are expected near Williams and south of the Grand Canyon. From the national park to U2's classic album, the Joshua Tree is an iconic part of the desert landscape. But with climate change, the natural wonder is in danger of extinction. Reporter Jude Binkley went to Joshua Tree National Park to learn more about the threats and what's being done to protect the tree.
With its twisted, jagged branches that reach up toward a vibrant desert sky, the Joshua Tree is a common sight across the Mojave and on our Instagram pages. But experts are warning that as many as 90% of Joshua trees could disappear by the end of the century.
Based on on-the-ground data and the best available climate modeling that we have, and indications show that with 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius change, we will be losing a large portion of our Joshua trees here.
Joshua trees became the first plant in California to be given endangerment protections due to climate change. California Fish and Wildlife officials are currently reviewing whether these iconic plants should be permanently protected, making it illegal to take or kill them without authorization. The trees face multiple threats: hotter conditions and dried out soil, struggles with reproduction, and wildfires torching the desert landscape.
Being on the edge of their range here means there's something about this edge, this zone, that is limiting or restricting, how far out they grow and reproduce and become established. So because they're already kind of on the edge of their range, there are already limitations due to available moisture, temperature range. So their vulnerability is not a surprise when it comes to looking at climate change.
Here at Joshua Tree National Park, these younger populations of Joshua trees have a smaller range of areas to survive. Because of the rising temperatures, they're moving to higher and cooler areas of the park known as refugia. To help protect Joshua trees, the park is working with universities to model climate change trends and building fire breaks with the Conservation Corps. If the tree is granted permanent protections, it would be a step forward for the state's handling of climate change.
One of the most important things about it will be official state recognition of the threat of climate change to biodiversity. California is a leader in taking action on climate change. but we've yet to officially recognize under our State Endangered Species Act that climate change can be the primary threat upon which we can base protection of a species as threatened or endangered under the law.
There are two species of Joshua tree, western and eastern. Found in California and Nevada and known for its more tree-like appearance, the western species is being considered for the protections. Joshua trees are an iconic symbol of the Southwest, but with as many as 90% of trees disappearing by century's end, they may become a symbol of our society's failure to address climate change, fading to old memories on our Instagram pages. In Joshua Tree, Jude Binkley, Cronkite News.
California Fish and Wildlife will finish its review on Joshua trees in April, which will decide whether to permanently add them to the California endangered species list. And now a look back on some of our top stories about how Arizonans give back to their communities.
There are more than 14,000 children in foster care here in Arizona, and there aren't enough homes for them all. One surprise family has opened their home not only to foster children, but to become one girl's forever family. Reporter Julia Sandor shares their journey.
I had the opportunity to meet the Becerra family as they were preparing to adopt 5-year-old Raya, and their adoption proceeding was one of the first to take place in person since the pandemic.
Come over here.
For the Becerra family, home is where the heart is.
I love my family.
Even when it takes a little longer for it to become official.
I think all of us, including the kids,
Yes.
we all felt like it's meant to be.
I remember sitting on my floor. I was just organizing documents. I remember as soon as I hung up, I said yes before I even talked to him because I knew what our family had felt.
Although they wanted to adopt Raya right away, the Department of Child Safety wanted them to get rid of their license from the state that allows them to foster children with higher needs and disabilities. But this was something the Becerra family couldn't do.
Then she went into another home that was an adoptable home, and it was hard. It was really hard.
Just 6 months later, they got the call again. Raya would become a permanent part of the family.
This is forever, and I think that's what kind of allowed her to really let go and be like, this is my mom and dad. Like, this is my home, my family, my brothers and sisters. And so it's cute for her to be able to feel that place where she belongs.
I find that it is in this child's best interest to be adopted by the Becerra family.
They now have a total of 12 children, a combination they like to call their own Brady Bunch, a rewarding event for the attorney who helped with this adoption and the one before.
I just feel incredibly lucky to do what I do, and each family is special and each has their own unique story.
And the Becerra family is still keeping their door open to more children in the foster care system.
Every child that comes in our home changes our family in a positive way.
To become a foster parent in Arizona, visit the Arizona Department of Child Safety website or dcs.az.gov. In the newsroom, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and some organizations, as they do every year, are preparing to help people in need. Cronkite News reporter Spencer Chiak explains why this year a popular food bank has a different approach.
This group of students and young baseball players spend hours preparing food boxes at St. Mary's Food Bank. They want to help people in need. Venezuelan Martin Salazar is part of this group. He says he understands very well the need to help.
Por toda la necesidad que yo he visto en mi país y sé cómo se siente pasar por eso, porque antes de jugar con el equipo, yo también pasé esa experiencia.
Their leader, Jesus Ramos, brought some of them here to St. Mary's Food Bank so that they understand the importance of giving back to the community.
Further down their career, they can all kind of go their own paths and find kind of an organization or charity they want to help with. So just kind of getting that in their minds and letting them experience it for once.
In addition to continuing its long-held mission to help those in need, for St. Mary's Food Bank, this year has a special meaning. according to its public relations director.
This is the first time St. Mary's has gone up into northeast Arizona, into the Navajo, into the Hopi tribe, into a lot of the tribal nations up there.
The pandemic had devastating effects on the country. The indigenous nations are some of the most affected. St. Mary's Food Bank is closer to them now more than ever, Brown says.
It's that we were able to build these relationships and put together things for the long haul that we're able to help people in that community over a long period of time.
In total, St. Mary will distribute Thanksgiving foods to a total of 20,000 families across the state. In Phoenix, Spencer Chiak, Cronkite News.
To find food bank services near you, go to firstfoodbank.org.
As we prepare to invite family and friends back into our homes for Thanksgiving dinners, already thinking about leftovers, it's also the perfect time to give back to your community. Reporter Diana Quintero spoke with a high school student who works all year long to give back to her community.
According to the USDA, food waste accounts for about 30 to 40% of the nation's food supply. A local high school student is doing her part to combat the issue through her nonprofit, which donates to places like St. Mary's.
I actually started in 8th grade, so back in 2018.
It was a simple middle school science project where Venkatesh was able to present her surplus food efforts at the White House. Just a few years later, her nonprofit, Cultivate US, was up and running.
Obviously, world hunger is a huge problem.
And she's tackling the issue by collecting surplus food from home gardens, farms, and food rescue banks. She then donates them around the state.
And we take that excess produce and we distribute it to the less fortunate or to charity organizations.
Because her time is limited as a high school student, she's only out every other week, distributing between 120 to 150 pounds each time.
Oh, really?
Venkatesh believes food waste is a problem that encompasses both climate action and social justice.
And when food decomposes, it releases really harmful methane gases. So we're trying to, at the same time, save our climate and save our planet while also helping the people.
She even created an app to make the donation process more efficient, which is important during the busy season.
Since it's harvest season, we like to especially go during this time to get the most produce we can and go to places like soup kitchens where there's that community, and during that Thanksgiving time, people want to be around family and more friends.
For the kitchen, for the street. Venkatesh is hoping to grow her nonprofit as she goes to college, hopefully one day reaching across the U.S. Cultivate US is always looking for donations, much like St. Mary's. Organizations like these really need help, especially during this time. In Phoenix, Diana Quintero, Cronkite News.
Canyon University is making his best effort to give back to those in need, not only during the holiday season, but year-round. Cronkite News reporter Milan Andrade followed the student for a day to show his acts of care.
It's important for people to understand people. Life sometimes can get overwhelming and extremely difficult. And based on these concepts, a business management student from Grand Canyon University makes his best effort to help those in need. And it starts in his parents' garage.
I have always wanted to have a clothing company. I really didn't know where and when and what I wanted to make the company about, but it's not just a clothing brand.
He starts by making his own clothes with an original vintage feel that he then sells on his website. With the profit he makes, he goes to thrift stores to buy clothes. From there, he makes his way to cities with water and snacks, volunteers, and of course a clothing rack to give clean clothes to those in need. Jason volunteers who come out to help call this movement Washing the City.
Is based on giving and how important it is to give within your community and give generously and give with an open mind and give with an open heart. And I think that when we start spreading and people understand how important it is to give, we will really see impactful change within ourselves and community.
I feel so blessed right now. I have to go somewhere and cry.
In Arizona, almost 11,000 people are experiencing homelessness. Jace has recently started attending more on-campus clubs at GCU to help spread awareness of homelessness and to get more volunteers to help wash the city. In Phoenix, Milan Andrade, Cronkite News.
Arizona summers bring not only the heat, but also wildfires, kitten season, and monsoon season. Even though it's getting cooler out, some shelters are still seeing an overflow of animals. Cronkite News reporter Nicole Long visited local shelters to see how monsoons have impacted their capacities.
We definitely have had a lot of capacity issues, and it's just a whole conglomerate of all of these different things just coming together.
These storms bring the possibility of pets escaping homes in panic. Here in Maricopa County, officers like Stephanie Gallego spend their day responding to calls all across the valley.
During monsoons, people fail to rectify their fencing, so there's fences that are already lacking security.
Monsoon season lasts from June through September, and during these months in 2020 alone, about 6,500 dogs were brought into the shelter, according to Maricopa County Care and Control.
The summertime is probably busier for us. I know it sounds contradicting. There's more people out and about, so there's more opportunities for an encounter with a dog and a human.
Building a positive relationship between your animal's behavior and loud storms, along with maintaining a secure home, are just a couple ways to keep your pet safe during monsoon season. In Phoenix, Nicole Long, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Next on Break It Down, the burnout some people of color are feeling from the diversity conversation. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications Phoenix Sports Bureau provides students with hands-on learning experiences and opportunities in sports journalism. From covering local high schools, colleges, and the pros, students get the opportunity to go live from our Facebook shows covering local, collegiate, and pro sports in the Valley. From digital reporting, broadcast, social media, and producing, there's opportunities for all. For more, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Let's break it down. Thanks so much for joining me. I mean, this diversity, equity, inclusion has been like on the tongues of everyone in 2020. But for some of us, it's been like too much on the tongue because I'm kind of sick and tired, I know personally, of having the same conversations over and over again. So how are you feeling about the dialogue and constantly talking about diversity?
You know what? I agree with you. It is burnout. We're talking about it all over the place. It's the hot topic right now. But when you've lived the lived experience, it's just kind of like, okay, I get it.
Yes.
It feels like pandering possibly,
yes.
In some circles. And so I totally understand that everybody wants to make sure that they're on the right side of history in this moment. But at the end of the day, I don't want to keep having the conversation because what people don't realize is that it is re-traumatization for us.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I took my dog to the vet the other day, and as soon as I walked in, the vet literally looked at me and saw the scarf on my head and just inundated me with thousands of questions about what tribe did it come from? Was I a part of a specific tribe? What the colors and patterns that existed in Africa meant? And I literally left out of the office feeling completely overwhelmed. And I think that that's another part of the conversation is that sometimes not only do we not want to be the voice for everything Black, but sometimes I don't know everything Black. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break.
Right, absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned going to your vet, because this just happened to me the other day. I was out trying to get some exercise in, walking my dog, and ran into one of my neighbors, and my neighbor just really wanted to have like this very deep conversation about racial trauma. And I was like, I just want to exercise and I just want to walk my dog, and I'm not in a place that I want to have this conversation. And while it may be important to you in that moment, it isn't important to me, because I feel like when you ask the oppressed to explain why we're oppressed, you are further oppressing us. And so that is the true burnout. That's the absolute true burnout. Because just do research. Don't come to us to make us answer all the questions that you have, because we're not all monolithic. We may feel very different about a situation. So all people of color may not have the same thought process about something, even though we may have the same lived experience. And so when we're constantly asked, or when we are the representative for a whole race, that is complete burnout, and it's unfair.
When 2020 started and we were dealing with, a lot of racial tension, I started putting myself out there as someone who was willing to have that difficult conversation. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I think I approached it with enthusiasm. And as the year went on, I started to literally see diversity turn into a fad. And those same conversations that were coming from a good place in the beginning, I noticed a shift, you know what I mean? And I just feel like, just for instance, I was sitting in it was a group kind of like project kind of situation. And we were talking about walking a mile in someone else's shoes. And we interviewed a slew of Caucasian people, while there were 3 ethnic people at the table, and we never once asked them about them. And I said, it's so crazy that we're trying to walk a mile in someone's shoes, but we still don't quite get what that means to literally just peer into the people sitting right next to you. I think sometimes we want to change the world and we don't realize like the world was like right here in proximity. And I think that for people who are constantly working right now in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, some people are starting to feel a shift, and almost, I kind of feel a little bit used, you know what I mean? And I think that's contributing to my lack of wanting to even have any more conversations.
Yes. No, that's a very important point that you bring up, because I do work with a lot of people that are in the diversity, equity, inclusion space, and they feel like the guinea pig. They feel like they have to have all the answers. They feel like that if they don't show up and say what they think everybody wants to hear, and honestly, they're still being oppressed, because they're still not being able to be authentic, because they are trying to give you the answers that they think that you want to hear. And it absolutely is unfair to those that are working in that space, because we need a break. Again, like as I mentioned earlier, trying to have the same conversation about something is also re-traumatization. And so if we don't recognize that in the community, and if we don't recognize that in the society, that there's a time and a place to have the conversation, and recognize when that needs to happen, you can walk away feeling used. And here's the truth: our lived experience is not a trend. It's not a fad. It is our reality every single day. So for those who are in the space or working with others in the space that may not be, a person of color, understand that we don't always want to have that conversation. We don't always want to be looked at as the person that has the answers, because it's exhausting.
What kind of advice would you give to someone? Because this has happened to me a few times, and to be honest with you, I don't think I even know how to handle it. What do you say to someone who finds themselves in a conversation that that's traumatizing, but yet they are also the authority in the conversation, or people are looking at them in that way, but some of those words are starting to trigger some emotions? Like, what are some tools they can maybe use to help kind of get themselves out of it, or kind of just, get back to a space where you can enter that conversation again, just with a clear head? What kind of advice would you give to someone that's going through that?
That is an absolutely perfect question. And you know, at the end of the day, the one example that comes to mind is Van Jones on CNN. When the verdict came down for Derek Chauvin, and he was in his emotions and could not, he couldn't contain himself. But it was the years of trauma being realized that there is hope. And so I encourage people to be in their emotions. Don't run from your emotions because it's your authentic self. It is your truth. And if you're emotional in that moment, you can have the conversation that, as you can see, I'm very emotional right now because this is a trigger for me, and then give an example of why this may be a trigger for you. But I always encourage people, don't run for your emotions. They are there for a reason because they're there to tell you, to alert you to how you were feeling. And so don't run from it. Be okay with your emotions.
I love that. That is so powerful. Sometimes you just got to be in the space that you're in. Be okay with feeling, even if it's a negative thought, feel it. Don't stay there, but at least recognize that you are there. Thank you so very much. We are breaking it down. Listen, stay true to yourself no matter what. Stay strong and stay encouraged. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosalind. Breaking it down, DEI. Let's keep with the fight. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.